Okay, we are talking about the different types of sampling. And so here we are looking at a group of lobbyists has a list of the 100 senators. And to determine the Senate's position regarding farm subsidies, they talk to every seventh senator. So we're talking to a seventh senator. So they have this system. And so this would be a systematic type of sampling. And so if you're looking to explain your reasoning, then it would be because they are selecting every seventh senator. Now, a radio station asks its listeners to call in their opinion regarding the use of U.S. forces in peacekeeping missions. What type of sampling is used? Well, this is not cluster because we're not breaking things into groups. It's not systematic because we're not asking every fifth or sixth person. It's not stratified because we're not breaking people into groups. It's also not a simple random because we don't have a list and we're just randomly selecting. This is what is considered a convenience sample because number one, we're not really doing anything, or the radio station is not really doing anything to go out and get their survey. They are asking them to call in. So they are waiting for others to do the work. So that's more of a convenience type of sampling. What type of bias could affect the sample? Well, there's actually a couple of different types of bias. And with this type of bias, one of them is the voluntary response. This is a voluntary response because we're asking people to call in. So not everybody's going to call in. It's completely up to the individual whether they call in or not. And usually those that call in are only going to have really strong feelings one way or another. So voluntary response is going to give us that bias, and it's not going to give us a real good feel of one way or the other. This is also going to have a self-interest bias because number one, if you're not interested in what the radio station is talking about, then you're not even going to be listening to the radio station. If you're not interested in the topic, you're definitely not going to call in. So you could have that type of bias again. You could have some social acceptability bias due to the fact that depends on where you're at and depends on who your friends are, things of that nature. You may not want other people around you to know how you really feel. So if you don't really want people to know how you feel about the issue, you don't really want your voice heard on the radio type of thing. And so you would prefer something with more anonymity a lot of times. We could also get a non-response type of bias because people may just not call in and all. So with bias, you can have multiple types of bias, and they can affect your samples in so many different ways. Now, looking at levels of measurement, we have ordinal and nominal. Now, remember with ordinal, it has to be a universal order. And what I mean by universal order means that everyone has to understand that order. So it's not favorite order or preferred order. It has to be a completely universal order, whether it be in Texas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, New England, any of those, everybody has to understand the order. If it doesn't have that universal order, then it's going to be nominal. Now, I understand that a lot of people automatically say, well, alphabetical is a universal order. But the thing is we don't always have everything in alphabetical order. That doesn't automatically put things in order, because we can have things in different orders and there's not a hierarchy. It's not always going to be in that order. If you think about positions, such as president, vice president, things of that, they're always going to be in that order. But if you think about alphabetical, that's just one possible order. So just because it's in alphabetical order does not mean that it's ordinal. Okay? So let's look at method of payment. Cash, check, debit card, credit card. Is there a universal order in which method of payment is understood? No, there's not. Method of payment is a nominal variable, because part of that is opinion as to which one is preferred, which one takes precedence over the other one. They're all method of payment. Yes, we can put them in alphabetical order, but cash, check, debit card, they're all as good as the other. Now, consider these number assignments for category items describing usefulness of customer service. 1, not helpful. 2, somewhat helpful, very helpful, extremely helpful. You can see the progression here. We know that extremely helpful is better than not helpful, and somewhat helpful is better than not helpful. So we understand the order of not, somewhat, very, and extremely. So since there is an order, plus we've given them like a 1, 2, 3, 4, similar to a place value, that makes this ordinal variable. Just like 1, 2, 3, 4 stars on ratings, that would be an ordinal variable. Now, here we're asked to identify population, sample, and variable. So I'm going to go ahead and put population, sample, and variable, because we want to talk about each one. So for this one, we're talking about a survey of 1,602 American households found that 32% of the households own a DVD recorder. Now I want you to look at this. It says a survey of 1,602 American households found that 32% of the households. So if you notice, households is who we're surveying, not just Americans, but we're surveying the households, okay? The sample is always who you survey. So the sample is the 1,602 American households, and you want to be specific. American households that were surveyed. Okay, you want to be specific because the sample changes based on what you're looking at. Now the population, because we said that the samples were the 1,602 American households that were surveyed, the population, and your population will always include the word all. Okay, population is all American households. So you kind of look and see, okay, who did we survey? What are we looking at? Type of thing. And then for your population, you're just going to kind of put in the word all. And then the variable is, what question are we asking? So the question that we're asking is, do they own a DVD player or DVD recorder? That's what we're asking. So that's going to be our variable. It's basically going to be a yes or no type of question, but that's the variable that's being asked. It's not a number. Yes, we're getting a percentage, but we're not actually asking them how many DVD recorders do you own. We're just asking, do you own one? Yes or no. Now on this next one, again, we're looking for the population, the sample, and the variable. And so a recent study attempted to estimate the proportion of Florida residents who were willing to spend more tax dollars on protecting the Florida beaches from environmental disasters. So a recent study attempted to estimate the proportion of Florida residents and willing to spend more tax dollars on protecting the beaches from environmental disasters. 4,200 Florida residents were surveyed. So 4,200 Florida residents were surveyed. So 4,200 Florida residents that were surveyed is our sample. Remember, your sample is always who was surveyed. Who got asked the questions? That's your sample. Think about sample and surveyed. That's what you're looking for on sample. Population, remember, is going to include the word all, and then not the number, but just Florida residents. And then your variable is, what question were they asking? And they were asking, were you willing to spend more tax dollars on protecting the Florida beaches from environmental disasters? Is the variable. Okay? And again, you want to be as specific as possible on all of these. In other words, what is the actual question you're asking? So go ahead and practice, and then let me know if you have any questions.